Welcome to episode 20 of the podcast. This is Thea, the Mystic Visionary, and I'm here today to pick a word for the week. And if you don't know what that's about, go back to episode 1 or you can check in the show notes. I am going to go into my little magic box. I'm going to open it up and take out my beautiful crystal, and I'm going to close my eyes and search around in the box to find the perfect word to talk about today, to explore the possibilities and hold space for the new paradigm. And the word is failure. Failure. That's interesting because when I asked people to write these words, I asked about 10 people that I love and care about and asked them to put down on little pieces of paper that I sent to them the top 10 words that have meaning to them. And it would be interesting to think that one of somebody's top 10 words is failure. So I'm going to contemplate that. I'm going to meditate on that word, and then I'll be back to talk about it and what that means in the new paradigm. Okay, I'm back. Boy, that was a tough one for me. Going into meditation was easy, but then contemplating the word failure really just brought up all kinds of stuff. One of the biggest things I realized is that failure is a concept in the 3D world. In the world of the physical form. Failure is not a word in the new paradigm, in this new earth, the multidimensional world of form that we're shifting into. I realized that failure and success were the two ends of the spectrum. Like they're the polarity in the 3D world. And in the 3D world, that's all we have. We have, dark and light and good and bad and failure and success and black and white. And things have the duality, the two sides, the polarities. And failure is just one end of a spectrum. And it really means nothing in the new paradigm. But I realized as I was meditating, as I was struggling, it was almost like I was going through mud, trying to walk through mud, trying to open my mind to the word. It was like I was feeling blocked by even exploring the word. And I realized as I was meditating how much judgment we put on ourselves, and that word just carries so much judgment. And I also was thinking about how we are programmed from such an early age about success and failure, particularly in school. You had a failing grade, or you don't want to fail this class, or you don't want to fail high school, or you don't want to fail geometry, or you want to just that idea of failure has such a negative connotation to it. And we are so programmed to avoid failure. Or on the reverse of that, if you have this consistent, like I have experienced in my life, I'm going to be honest here about what I was up against in the meditation that I kept having to let go of, was this idea of what success means. I have experimented in my life with so many things, and I tried things and it didn't pan out, or it didn't feel right for me. I remember years and years ago, I decided I'm a very organized person, so I thought I'm going to be a professional organizer. So I took this course in being an organizer and being certified as a professional organizer. And I took on my first client, who was an editor of a local newspaper. And her office was like crazy. It was piled high and under the desk, on top of the desk, every chair, every bookcase. It was just crazy. And it even flowed over into the outside office. And I was just misorganization. It was like, okay, we're going to go through this. You don't need that. You don't need that. You're going to keep this. You're not going to keep that. Figure out what you want to get rid of, what no longer serves you. Let's put things together. And I did this whole thing and realized that this woman's brain didn't work that way, And I didn't know what to do, because my brain does work that way. And I know that I took this course and now I'm supposed to be a professional organizer, but I was just judging this woman, gosh, she is so disorganized. How can I ever help her? And it was really a struggle for me. And it's it was a success failure thing. If I could help her get organized, which is what she wanted, then I would be successful. If I didn't, then I was a failure. And so I sort of stalled that career before it even took off the ground, because I couldn't manage to mold this woman into what I thought organized looked like. And instead of me looking at her as a person and saying, what is this person's style? What do they need? What could we make work for her? It was just so frustrating. So I quit doing that, and I deemed myself a failure. Well, I failed at that. I wanted to be this, and now I failed at it. And then I went on to other things in my life, and I can say that same story with about 10, probably 10 different things that I've tried and that I deemed as failure. When in reality, recently I was listening to a book on tape, and they were talking about what this three-dimensional world provides for us. This three-dimensional world provides for us contrast, and contrast leads to clarity. I like this thing, I don't like that thing. And then when you realize, oh, that doesn't work for me, but this does work for me. So then being in a position of clarity, or contrast, leads to clarity. So you can say, well, that didn't work for me. Like my professional organizing thing. It's wow, I'm good at organizing my life, but I can't get in someone else's head and teach them how to organize. And I've also had, in that process, had people where I completely organized everything for them. And 6 weeks later, they're calling me again saying, I'm all disorganized again. Can you come back? It's you have to either teach people how to be organized. It's that idea. So it's I am not a failure. This is just a contrast for me to realize, what, this isn't something I want to do. And so I can go on to whatever's next. And it's contrast to clarity. It's not success or failure, it's contrast. And the other area that I know a lot of people struggle with, including myself, is the weight loss scenario. It's the battle of the weight. So you have, you go on a diet and you go off the diet, so you failed. I failed to lose the weight. No, I lost the weight, but then I gained the weight back, so I'm a failure. Well, that is not how it works. That is not exact. It isn't failure. And all these things were coming up for me about what failure is. And failure is just part of the three-dimensional material world that we live in. And we call it failure. It isn't really failure. It is obviously trying things that don't go along with who you are. Now, we can take that a little step further, because I know there'd be people who say there is failing, like the whole college situation. You're in college, you take a course, you start the course, you have to pass the course. It's a pass-fail situation. If you don't do the work, then you don't pass. that is a pass-fail situation. I agree, and I understand where you're coming from if you're thinking that. But that's more on a subjective kind of level instead of a personal level of, if you didn't pass that class, you just didn't pass that class. It doesn't make you a failure. Or it's not a failure on a personal level. It's more of a, I don't know how, it's so different. I'm not even sure how to explain it. But we are so caught up and programmed and conditioned into that pass or fail situation. And I believe that starts in our childhood, in school. I mean, it starts in first grade, I'm sure. I'm sure in kindergarten they give you a break, but in first grade, you're starting to get that. You have to pass a certain thing. You got to pass this test. You have to get a certain grade. And a lot of people, it's like if you get a C, you passed, but that feels like failure to them. So this word failure is just like so loaded, so loaded. So I would like to think about, first of all, I'm not even going to bring that word into the new paradigm. There's no place for that in the new paradigm. What there is the concept that I talked about earlier, is that contrast. And it's a blessing of our three-dimensional world that we live in this space where we can contrast things. And we can contrast basically if something's working for us or not working for us. And if someone puts you to a test that you allegedly fail, then that is a guide for you to understand this is probably not something you should be doing. This is probably not something that is resonating with the spirit of you, your internal guidance system, which I've talked about in other podcasts. Failure is just a word that's created I'm not even sure why it was created. I think it is like it's an idea that, here's something that just came to me. Like a dam broke. So the dam failed. It failed. The structure of the dam failed and the water came through the dam. That's a failure. That's a failure of the structure. As far as failure on a person, and this, when I asked for these words, I asked people to write down words that had significant meaning to them, that meant something to them personally. So I'm looking at this word as somebody who chose failure as something that meant something personal. And so what I want to respond to whoever did that, if they're listening, is that failure is not something you should take personally. It should be a dam failed, or, you stretched something and the pressure of the stretch, it busted and, it failed. That's a different kind of failure. In the new paradigm, again, I'm not even taking that word failure into the new paradigm. I believe that we need to go into the contrast. It's like if there's something that feels good and it feels right, then you do it. If it feels wrong and it feels uncomfortable, or if it feels difficult in a way that you don't feel like you want to be challenged, then you don't do it. Nothing that is really within our heart is going to make us feel that what that word connotates. You can stretch yourself, that's for sure. You can go for things, you can stretch yourself, you can have some kind of goal that you want to reach. All those things are great. That is something that I encourage people. I mean, I would encourage anybody to go after something that seems impossible and go for it. But I would never deem not reaching that a failure, because everything we do, no matter how it turns out, is a growth process. It's an expansion process. That's what spirit is about. That's what evolution is about. That's what human consciousness is about, is this expansiveness. And if you don't challenge yourself and you don't strive or reach for new goals or new quests, then you're not going to expand yourself. There is no failure in that. That the only failure there would be is not trying and not doing it. And I am seriously not going to allow, or I'm not going to believe that failure is a word that even belongs in the new paradigm. The new paradigm is about love, acceptance, following your heart. And if following your heart is going after something that seems difficult or challenging or never been done before, any of those things, that's perfectly okay. But not reaching that mark or not succeeding at that is not failure. That's the biggest key here. I just want to encourage people to listen to your heart and the feelings that come. I understand that really when we break this down, and I've talked about this before, there are only two feelings that we have. We have good feelings and we have bad feelings. If you are feeling good about something, then keep doing it. If it feels bad, then don't do it. I think that it's as simple as that. And not to discourage you from trying, but if it doesn't feel right inside, then why are you doing it? It's like that's your internal guidance system. It's our higher self speaking to us. If it feels right, do it. If it doesn't feel right, don't do it. There is no failure. There's just a connection and an understanding on a deeper level within inside of you that you have to get in touch with. And again, going back to our programming, I think we have been programmed to ignore that aspect of ourselves and be obligated to these tasks that are put onto us by people outside of ourselves, like school systems, for example. And you have to achieve this and achieve that, and based on the standards that they set. Sure, some people do fine in that, and they strive and they thrive in that kind of setting. But a lot of people don't, and that does not make them a failure. That just makes them a person that doesn't do well in that kind of situation. And then what that person needs to do is look inside themselves and say, what does light me up? What does get me excited? What makes me feel good? I mean, it's your feelings are your secret sauce. Your feelings are the guidance system trying to speak to you. And each one of us has something different. No two people have that same guidance system. It's unique to all of us. And if it feels like it excites you and it lights you up, then go for it. If it's challenging, then find ways to make your way through those challenges. And it doesn't have to be hard. Well, it can be hard, but it doesn't have to be this, oh, I failed thing. It's like it can reevaluate. How can I do this? How can I change my mindset to achieve this thing that I want to achieve? That's the key here. I believe that I've been working on this idea a lot lately of change your thoughts, change your life. And it's like you make something hard in your mind, then it will be hard. If you make something easy in your mind, it'll be easy. But I also think we've been taught that if it's easy, it doesn't have value. If it's hard, it has value. And that is also not true. It's like, it's the consciousness that you bring to anything. It's consciousness first, and then whatever it is you're after second. It's like the belief system that you have about whatever it is going to change the whole way that you're dealing with anything. And that's the process that you need to spend time and energy on, is that process of recognizing what your thoughts are about a situation, and if you want to change them, and how you want to change them. Even on a simple thing, I'm going to give another example. When I was in college, I had a terrible, terrible time with algebra. There was just something, and I'm a pretty smart person, there's just something goes on inside my brain that when you put letters and numbers together, I get like, error message. This does not compute. And I had to take pre-algebra, like, 2 classes of pre-algebra. I failed the first one, failure, but I didn't pass. And the second one, I realized, okay, in order for me to continue this, to get my degree, I have to pass this class. I need some help. So I made an art project. I got a bunch of art supplies, and I took all these different formulas, these algebraic formulas, and I turned it into art. And I watched YouTube videos. I hired a tutor, and I managed to make it through that algebra class. But what it required was me not just giving up and saying, oh, I'm a failure. What it required was me to look at it with new eyes and say, how can I shift who I am and how I function to manage to get through this so that I can go on to the next step of what I want. And now I have that piece of art that I made. Actually, I made that same piece of art for my tutor, or I made 2 different pieces of art, one for her and one for me. And as a reminder that I'm a creative person, and there's a creative solution to almost any problem. And I wanted to get my degree enough that I was willing to overcome that, fear. So I think that that's what's required, is it's just changing our thoughts about something and really recognizing that failure and success are something that are built into the 3-dimensional world that is collapsing. It's collapsing. What's emerging is this new world where you can experiment, you can challenge yourself, you can try things and decide it's not for you and move on to something else. Or you can change the way you look at it and change your thinking and make it be different. So that's all I'm going to say, I think, about failure. And whoever submitted this word, I want to thank you, because it really challenged me to look at this word in a new way. And it really helped me a lot, because I felt this lingering, when I first went into meditation, I had this like heaviness of this lingering feeling of all the failures I sensed in my own life. And I was able to release a lot of that. And I am grateful for that. So whether this has helped you or not, it certainly has helped me. So thank you and bless you. And I'll be back next week with a new word. If you want to learn more about the 5 guiding principles of the new paradigm, you can listen to my audiobook, which is The Pocket Guide to the New Paradigm, which is a free audiobook on YouTube. I'll link it below. And the other thing that I have available is the Heart Archetype Quiz. It's a short quiz that answers the question, am I listening to the call of my heart? And you take the quiz and you'll discover what might be blocking you from living the call of your heart. And I think that's what we're all being called to do right now, is to look inside, connect with our heart, and follow its guidance. If you want to take that quiz, there's a link right below. If you have any questions or comments, feel free. You can also leave those below.